Hey guys, it's Biggs. Now I'm still here spending a couple of days with my good friend here, Mr. Dan Sharifi, at the absolute mecca for Central American cichlids, Cichlids of the Americas. Make sure you check it out. I'll link the website in the video. And I've spent 2 days, as I said, wandering around here just in awe with my jaw open, staring at fish, videoing fish for you guys. And there's a couple pairs of fish here that have stood out that are something really unique, something that needs a story. And I figured no better person to tell me the story about these unique fish than the man himself. Where are they? There's one there, one's over here.
There are a couple of them down
Pair of them down here. So what are we looking at, Dan?
So over here we have two pairs of Parachromis dovii. These are the red or orange morph. And the backstory on these fish really is that if you look at any of the old documentation or old texts, there was always the legend of having Parachromis dovii in different colors. This red and orange one was talked about for quite some time in terms of them people spotting it, but it was never really in the hobby. And then
I'd never heard of it. Until about a year ago.
I think it was a couple of years back. Somebody actually had caught them in Costa Rica, and they kind of made their way into the hobby. These particular pairs came from a friend of mine that actually lives in New York, and from what I understand, he told me the story about how he had a transshipper send them from Costa Rica, and he ended up having his wife got pregnant. He ended up having a baby. He didn't have time for the fish anymore, so he said, "Hey, I want somebody to work with them," and he sent them over here. The fish has actually been around for some time now, a couple of years, as I mentioned, and really there's a different morph to them, but they act very similar to regular dovii. They like to hide when they're young. And then as they get larger, they become more and more active, and they become more of a wet pet than anything else.
And as we were talking about the other day, you mentioned this is actually a naturally occurring fish. This isn't something that's been aquarium developed or line bred. This is natural.
Yes, the fish is actually, from all of the texts and documentation that I've seen, it's a naturally occurring morph in the wild. Now, I don't think in the wild you're going to have a red male breed with a red female, because that's just not how cichlid husbandry works. So
he's a freak. If he's in the wild and he's the only orange one, he's kind of a freak.
That's right. So what happens is if a female happens to be around that he's courting that's orange, and that would happen, but if a regular morph female was around, they'd probably just breed together. In any event, the one thing about it is I've seen pictures of this fish in various morphs. So I've seen them all orange. I've seen them orange and brown, orange and blue, orange and white, all white.
It's a kind of a piebald pattern.
Kind of a piebald pattern. And the one thing about captive breeding these fish is that they breed like regular dovii do. They probably don't breed as often as regular dovii do. And then the one thing is when they lay eggs, the first few days after the eggs hatch is always really touchy. They require extremely clean water. If you don't have extremely clean water until the time they get off the floor, they have a tendency to die off. So they're really
the orange form only, or you think Joe in general?
I think the orange form.
Okay.
The ones that are the regular dovii, whether they're from Nicaragua or Costa Rica, as many of you know, they can handle a wide range of water. But these guys tend to be really susceptible to fungus, to parasites, to cold water, and it's really critical to get them off the floor as quickly as possible as you possibly can. So typically after they hatch, it takes us 72 hours for the fish to get off the floor and become free swimming.
At the temperatures that you keep everything.
At the temperatures. So on this particular fish, what I'll do is I'll do multiple water changes, and we'll try to push the envelope as quickly as we can. So even, I know it sounds silly, but even if you can cut that 72 hours to 68 hours or 66 hours, like cleaner water, heat, making sure that there's proper water circulation.
The yield will be better. Yeah.
The yield will be better, and you'll have less problems. But once they're off the ground, feeding them is really important initially, and once they've had that first or second feeding, they are off and running just like any other cichlid would be running. So, but the difference.
So other than color, they're pretty much the same as every other dovii. They get the same size, they have the same tendencies, the same level of aggression.
Same size, and then what you'll see is at about an inch or even 3/4 of an inch, as soon as they start looking like fish and not like fry, you'll see some peeling or fading, and most of the ones that we raise and that we've actually taken to market, they'll end up being different shades of white. So they'll end up being translucent, and then they'll turn white. And by the time they get 2 to 3 or 4 inches, they start changing, that white changes to orange. So I'd say about 90% of our fish go from white to orange or some variation there in between. And then the other 10% seem to carry the recessive gene of this fish, which would be the regular morph. So really haven't worked much with the fish that have the recessive gene. Not sure if their tendencies for their fry would be the same as these guys, but for the most part, these guys produce more, they're not like electric black blue jack Dempseys where they produce 50-50
right,
or 25% depending on what the genetic cross is. But they produce mostly just orange and white or variations of that. And then the only thing going back to it is just making sure that the first few days after the eggs hatch, you're extremely careful with water conditions and water quality to make sure the fry become viable.
This fish is a fish that you breed and you have available on your list.
Yes, it is.
You guys can get it one place only. Cichlids of the Americas, Mr. Dan Sharifi. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Cool.